My wife tried to frame me for cheating. All to break our prenup and take everything I had ever worked for. She planted fake evidence, she lied to our friends, and she even got her own sister to lie for her. She cooked up an entire fictional affair, a masterpiece of deceit meant to paint me as the villain and her as the heartbroken victim. She really thought she had me cornered. She figured I'd be forced to settle and give her the millions she wanted, just to make the whole humiliating thing go away. She thought she was clever, planning every last detail. But she made one huge, catastrophic mistake. She forgot that my job, my entire career for the last 15 years, is in digital forensics. She thought she was playing checkers, but I was about to teach her how to play chess. In a courtroom. If you want to hear more stories about fighting back when the deck is stacked against you, do me a solid and hit that subscribe button. It genuinely helps the channel more than you know. To really get the scale of her betrayal, you have to know how we started. I met Laura when I was 28. I was already doing pretty well for myself, having co-founded a small but growing data security firm. I wasn't rich, not then, but I was comfortable and loved my work. My world was all about logic, data trails, and digital fingerprints. Everything had a pattern, a source, a truth you could verify. Laura was the complete opposite. She was this whirlwind of creative energy, a freelance graphic designer with a personality that just lit up a room. She was spontaneous, passionate. She saw the world in colors and feelings, while I saw it in code. They say opposites attract, and for us, that felt true. We balanced each other. She pulled me out of my shell, and I was the stable anchor for her more chaotic energy. We dated for 3 years, and they were happy years. The simple, unshakable kind. So when I proposed, nobody was surprised. We were the couple everyone rooted for. The prenup was my idea, and I brought it up early. It wasn't because I didn't trust her, it was about my business. My company was about to expand in a big way. We were taking on investors, and my partners and I had to protect the company from any personal drama, including a divorce. It was a standard liability shield. I sat Laura down and explained it as calmly and clearly as I could. I showed her the paperwork, walked her through the clauses. I told her this wasn't about us. It was about protecting the company, the jobs of our employees, and the trust of our investors. I made it crystal clear, this just protects what I built before you, Laura. Everything we build together, from this day forward, is ours. 50-50. No question. This just draws a line in the sand for the work I did before we got married. To my relief, she seemed totally fine with it. She read it over, asked a couple of questions, and said, "It makes sense. It's just a piece of paper. It doesn't change us." We both got our own lawyers, like you're supposed to. Her lawyer confirmed it was a fair, standard prenup. It laid out that if we divorced, my ownership of the company and premarital savings stayed mine. Anything we earned during the marriage would be split equally. It didn't have an infidelity clause. At the time, they seemed needlessly hostile, like planning for a fight before you've even made peace. The irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. With the papers signed, we got married in a beautiful ceremony with everyone we loved. The first 5 years of our marriage were pretty much perfect. My company took off, growing bigger than I'd ever imagined. My net worth exploded on paper, but I didn't really change my lifestyle. I drove the same car, lived in the same house we'd bought together, and just kept reinvesting in the business. Laura's career flourished too. She used our financial stability to launch her own boutique design agency, and I was her biggest fan. I helped with her business plan, fronted her the seed money from our joint account, and celebrated every new client like it was my own win. I thought we were a team, building an empire together. The cracks started so small I barely noticed them. Around our 6th anniversary, Laura started to change. She got obsessed with appearances and started hanging out with a new crowd, wives of investment bankers and old money types. Their conversations were always about summering in the Hamptons, wintering in Aspen, and the newest multi-million-dollar condo going up downtown. Suddenly, our lovely house was cramped. My reliable car was embarrassing. She talked less about her creative work and more about her brand. We'd never argued about money before, but it became a weekly thing. "Why can't we fly private like the Hendersons?" she'd ask. "Because it's a ridiculous waste of money," I'd say, trying to be logical. "It's not about waste, it's about status," she'd shoot back. I saw our wealth as a tool for security and for doing some good in the world. She started to see it as a ticket to a social club I wanted no part of. She also got weirdly secretive about her finances. Her agency, the one I helped her build, was suddenly a black box. If I asked how business was, she'd just say, "It's fine. You wouldn't get the creative industry." This from the woman I'd spent nights helping with spreadsheets. I told myself it was just stress, that she was trying to keep up with her new friends. I suggested we take a trip, just us, to reconnect. She agreed, but she spent the whole time on her phone, curating the perfect Instagram story to show everyone how #blessed and #in love we were. It felt empty, like a performance. The vibrant, down-to-earth woman I married was disappearing, replaced by a stranger who only cared about image and money. The betrayal didn't start with the fake affair. It started right there, with the slow, quiet death of the person I thought I knew. The moment my world turned upside down wasn't some big, dramatic fight. It happened on a quiet Tuesday night, which somehow made it even more sinister. I got home from a long day at work. The house was empty. Laura had texted earlier saying she was having dinner with her sister, Sarah. I was looking forward to a quiet night. As I went to hang up my jacket, I felt something heavy in the pocket that shouldn't have been there. I reached in and pulled out a cell phone. It wasn't my phone. I have an iPhone. This was a cheap, generic Android. A burner phone. I just stared at it for a full minute, my mind trying to find a logical reason. Did I pick it up by mistake? Did a client leave it? No, I hadn't seen any clients. I was in my own house. This phone was in my jacket. A cold dread started to creep in. I turned it on. No password. The phone was almost empty, except for a messaging app and a few photos. I opened the messages. My blood ran cold. It was a long, explicit text conversation with someone named Jessica. The messages were graphic, painting a picture of a passionate, long-running affair. They talked about secret meetings, close calls, and a cold, work-obsessed husband. They mentioned specific dates and places. It was a complete story of my supposed affair. My first reaction was just shock. The kind you feel in your whole body. My heart was pounding, and the room felt like it was shrinking. I didn't know the number, the name, any of it. This wasn't me. I'd never sent these messages. I'd never even met a Jessica. I sank onto our bed, the phone feeling like a hot coal in my hand. Then I saw the photos. There were 3. One was a blurry shot of my car parked outside some motel across town. The second was a picture of a hotel room door. The last one stole my breath. It was a photo of me, sleeping in my own bed, taken from a few feet away. It was grainy and dark, but it was definitely me. And right under it in the chat, a message, supposedly from me to Jessica. "Wish this was you beside me instead. Soon." The world just stopped. You see betrayal in movies, but you never get how powerful it is until it's happening to you. The texts were one thing, faked. But that photo of me sleeping? That was personal. That was terrifying. It meant someone was in my bedroom while I was asleep. My brain, the part that's trained to find patterns and deception, kicked into overdrive, fighting the wave of pure devastation. Something was off. It was all too neat. Too scripted. That work-obsessed husband line sounded less like a lover's complaint and more like a legal argument. The dates they mentioned, my hands were shaking, but I pulled out my own phone and checked my calendar. On the first date, I was in a board meeting all day, then a company dinner. My location data would prove that. On the second date, Laura and I were at a charity gala. There were hundreds of pictures of us online from that night. The third, I was on a flight to Seattle for a tech conference. The whole thing was a lie. A clumsy lie, but it was designed to be emotionally devastating, to make me panic and do something stupid. And that photo of me sleeping? Who could have taken that? The only other person who had a key was her, or someone she let in. Suddenly, all the little things from the last year just clicked into place. The money obsession, the new friends, the secrecy. The way she'd started joking about our prenup. "Good thing we're happy," she'd said one night, swirling her wine. "Imagine if you cheated on me. I'd take you for everything." I'd laughed it off as a dark joke. Now it sounded like a threat. This wasn't evidence of my affair. This was evidence of her plan. The burner phone wasn't mine. It was a prop. Planted in my jacket. A jacket she insisted I wear that morning because it matched the new tie she bought me. She was building a case to blow up our prenup and walk away with half of a company I'd poured my life into long before I met her. I sat there forever, just holding that phone, my mind a storm of hurt, anger, and ice-cold clarity. The love I had for her was twisting into something else. It was the feeling of realizing you've been sharing your bed with an enemy. When I heard her car pull in, I didn't confront her. My shock had already hardened into resolve. I calmly turned off the burner phone, carefully wiped it down with a cloth, put it in a Ziploc bag, and locked it in my office safe. I walked downstairs, put on a neutral face, and greeted her. "Hey, honey. How was dinner with Sarah?" I asked, my voice steady. The war had started, and she had no idea I'd just found her battle plan. The next morning, I called in sick to work for the first time in 5 years. The emotional fog had cleared, replaced by a cold, methodical focus. The hurt was still there, like a deep bruise, but I couldn't afford to be emotional. Laura had declared war, and I wasn't going to be a casualty. My first call wasn't to a lawyer, it was to Marcus, my company's head of cybersecurity and my most trusted guy. I told him I had a personal project that needed total discretion and the best forensic analyst I knew. I met him at a coffee shop way off the beaten path. I put the burner phone, still in the bag, on the table. I laid out the whole situation, the messages, the photos, my theory. Marcus, a guy who lives and breathes data, just listened, his face getting grimmer by the second. He took the bag carefully. "Don't worry," he said. "If she built this trap with a computer, she left a trail. They always do." My next call was to the best divorce attorney in the city, Eleanor Vance. She was known for being sharp, ruthless, and a genius with complex financial cases. I laid out the whole ugly story in her office: the marriage, the prenup, Laura's change in behavior, and the planted phone. I told her Marcus was already on it. Eleanor listened, her fingers steepled, her eyes locked on mine. When I finished, she gave a slow nod. "Good," she said. "You didn't confront her. You secured the evidence. You came to me. That's a better start than most cases I get." She was direct. "Your wife is trying to create a narrative of fault. Even though California is a no-fault state and infidelity doesn't automatically void a prenup, she's trying to poison the well. She wants to paint you as a monster to a judge, create public shame, and pressure you into a massive settlement out of sheer moral outrage. It's a dirty but common tactic." Her advice was simple and direct. First, act completely normal at home. No fights, no accusations. Be the same predictable husband I'd always been. Second, we needed to go on the offense. We had to prove not just that I didn't cheat, but that she intentionally and maliciously fabricated the whole thing. That, Eleanor said, was how we'd win. It would flip the script from my supposed affair to her actual fraud. She had me hire a private investigator, a former cop named Rick. His job was to shadow me, documenting my real movements, and more importantly, to start digging into Laura's life. While Marcus owned the digital world, Rick would handle the physical one. The game was on, and I was funding it from a personal savings account Laura didn't know existed. The next few weeks were the most surreal of my life. I'd go to work, come home, have dinner with my wife, and ask about her day, all while my team was systematically taking her lies apart. I was living a double life, playing dumb while getting daily updates that felt like punches to the gut. Marcus hit pay dirt first. He pulled the raw data from the burner. The results were damning. The texts were all sent from the phone to itself using a simple spoofing app. Jessica was just a label. Even better, he found the phone's location history. For the last month, the phone's GPS tracked perfectly with Laura's own cell phone. It went with her to her office, to yoga, to lunches. And on the day it was found, its data showed it traveled from her design studio to our house an hour before she supposedly went to meet her sister. Then the photos. The blurry one of my car? The metadata was stripped, but Marcus managed to restore fragments. It showed the photo was taken with a high-end professional camera, the same kind Laura used for work. He even found a faint reflection in my car's side mirror. After hours of enhancement, it was grainy, but the resemblance was undeniable, a woman with Laura's build, holding a camera. The photo of the hotel door was the nail in the coffin. Rick, the PI, went to the hotel. No record of me. But they did have a record of a one-night stay, paid in cash, by a woman matching Laura's description. Rick's police contacts helped him get the security footage. It showed Laura, in a wig and sunglasses, check in, go to the room for 5 minutes, just long enough to snap a photo, and leave. The last photo of me sleeping was the one that still haunts me. Marcus analyzed it. It was taken with Laura's own iPhone. The timestamp was 3:14 a.m., 2 weeks ago. The same night she told me she couldn't sleep and was going downstairs for some water. She had stood over me in the dark and taken that picture not as a wife, but as a saboteur. Rick's investigation filled in the why. Her design agency was drowning. She'd been overspending to keep up this new high-status image and was over $200,000 in debt. Voiding the prenup wasn't just greed, it was a desperate, fraudulent bailout plan. He also found her co-conspirator, her sister, Sarah. Phone records showed dozens of calls and texts between them in the hours before the phone was planted. Sarah wasn't just aware of the plan, she was in on it. Every piece of evidence was another shovel of dirt on the grave of our marriage. The calculated cruelty was stunning. After a month, Eleanor said we were ready. We had an airtight case. The next day, I sat Laura down in our living room, my heart a block of ice. "Laura," I said, "I think we need to get a divorce." Her reaction was an Oscar-worthy performance of shock and heartbreak. The tears were right on cue. "What? Why? Is there someone else?" she sobbed. It was all I could do not to laugh. "No," I said calmly. "There's no one else. This just isn't working." 2 days later, just like Eleanor said, I was served. Attached was a petition to invalidate our prenup, citing my long-term adultery, complete with the faked texts and a signed affidavit from her sister, Sarah, swearing she'd long suspected I was cheating. The trap was sprung. Now it was my turn. The showdown didn't happen in a courtroom, not at first. It was a formal mediation meeting in a sterile conference room. Me and my lawyer, Eleanor, on one side of a long mahogany table. On the other side sat Laura, her sister Sarah therefore, support, and her lawyer, a slick, overconfident guy named Peterson. Peterson came out swinging. He laid out their case with this booming, holier-than-thou voice, presenting his evidence binder with a flourish. "As you can see," he said, "Mr. Davies has been engaged in a prolonged and deceitful affair. We have texts, photos, and a sworn statement from my client's sister, who will testify to his distant and secretive behavior." Laura sat there playing the part of the wounded victim, dabbing her eyes with a tissue, shooting me these looks of deep disappointment. It was an incredible performance. Sarah sat beside her, patting her shoulder with a look of grim resolve. I said nothing, just like Eleanor told me. I let him go on for almost 30 minutes. He talked about Laura's pain and suffering and emotional trauma. He ended by demanding the prenup be nullified, that Laura be awarded 50% of my company, spousal support, her debts paid off, and her legal fees covered. It was a demand for my total destruction. When he finally stopped, Peterson leaned back, looking smug. He thought he had us. He thought we'd see his pile of evidence, fear the public shame, and write a huge check. Eleanor let the silence stretch for a moment before she spoke. Her voice was quiet, precise, and deadly. "Mr. Peterson," she began, "that was a compelling work of fiction. Now let's discuss reality." She slid a single, thin folder across the table. "My client will not be offering a settlement. In fact, we will be countersuing for fraud and requesting that your client be responsible for all legal fees. We will, however, be happy to honor the prenup she signed 8 years ago." Peterson actually scoffed. "On what grounds? Our case is airtight." "Is it?" Eleanor asked. "Let's start with the burner phone." She pulled out the forensic report. This report shows every single incriminating text was created on the device itself with a spoofing app. There was no Jessica. The phone was talking to itself. Laura's hand froze. Her eyes darted to Peterson. Eleanor kept going. The phone's GPS data shows it was in your client's possession for the entire month before its discovery. It was with her at her office, her gym, and it traveled with her to my client's home the night she planted it. She then produced the enhanced photo from my car's mirror. Here's the picture of my client's car. As you can see from the enhanced reflection, that's a woman of your client's build holding a professional camera, not a burner phone. Peterson's smug look was melting fast. As for the hotel room, Eleanor said, sliding over the receipt and security camera stills. My client has never been there. But your client has. Here she is, in a wig, paying cash, and leaving 5 minutes later. Just long enough to stage a photo. Laura went white as a sheet. Sarah just stared at the photos, her mouth open. Finally, Eleanor went for the kill. And then there's this. She produced the report on the photo of me sleeping. Taken at 3:14 a.m. with your client's personal iPhone. A phone she held while standing over her sleeping husband, not out of love, but to manufacture evidence for a fraud case. The room was dead silent. Laura was shaking, her face a mask of pure terror. Eleanor turned to Sarah. And Ms. Johnson, she said sharply, your affidavit claims you suspected an affair. Yet phone records show over 30 calls and texts between you and your sister in the 6 hours before the phone was planted. Would you like to explain under penalty of perjury what you were really talking about? Sarah physically shrank in her chair. Peterson was just shuffling papers, his face red. He was completely blindsided. This is an ambush, he stammered. It's not an ambush, Mr. Peterson, Eleanor cut in. It's called evidence. The truth. We have financial records showing your client's business is failing, establishing motive. We have a mountain of proof that this entire affair was a premeditated fabrication designed to commit fraud. She leaned back. So here's our position. You will drop this petition immediately. We proceed with an uncontested divorce based on the signed prenup. Your client walks away with what she's entitled to under that agreement, and she'll be responsible for her own debts and legal fees. If you refuse, we won't just see you in court. We'll file a report with the DA's office for conspiracy to commit fraud. Your choice. Laura finally broke. A real sob this time. She stared at me, her eyes wide with the horror of being so completely caught. I didn't feel hatred anymore, just a profound, empty sadness. She had gambled everything on a lie, and she'd lost it all. The fallout was fast and quiet. Peterson, realizing his client had lied to him and put his own career at risk, told Laura to take the deal. The fight was over. Within a week, it was all signed. The petition to invalidate the prenup was gone. The divorce went through exactly as the prenup laid out. Our shared assets, the house and our joint savings, were split 50-50ths. She kept her failing company and all its debts. My life's work, my company, was safe, protected by the very paper she tried to burn. The judge made her pay for her own lawyers, which couldn't have been cheap. No alimony. No bailout. Just the cold, hard terms of the contract. Her sister, Sarah, sent me a rambling email a month later, apologizing and blaming Laura for manipulating her. I never wrote back. The last I heard, Laura had to dissolve her company and sell her half of the house just to pay her debts. She moved back to her hometown, her big dreams of status and wealth completely gone. Her attempt to ruin me only ended up ruining herself. For me, winning didn't feel like a victory. It felt like a necessary amputation. I protected my work and my name, but the trust one had in people was shattered. It took a long time to rebuild my own sense of security, not financial, but emotional. To learn to trust my own judgment again. The real lesson wasn't about money or prenups. It was about character. I was so focused on the legal protection of that document that I missed the slow decay of the character of the woman I married. The real betrayal wasn't the fake affair. It was knowing that the person you love is capable of looking you in the eye every single day while plotting to destroy you for money. I fought back not for revenge, but because I refused to be a victim. I refused to let her lie become my reality. My victory wasn't just about a legal document, it was about taking back my own truth. It was a statement that facts are stubborn things, and that no lie can survive a head-on collision with the truth. The scars are still there, but they remind me, when you're faced with the ultimate betrayal, the best defense isn't anger. It's cold, hard, irrefutable proof. Thanks for sticking with me to the end. I know it's a heavy one. If you've been through anything like this, I'd be interested to hear your thoughts in the comments. What would you have done? And if you haven't already, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps.